to the Sacred Postpartum Summit. My name is Leila B and I am your hostess. I am also an entrepreneur, a mother of 3, a change maker, a traditional Moroccan postpartum trainer, and a philanthropist. My mission is to revive, reclaim and restore sacred and ancient traditional Moroccan postpartum medicine, to document the wisdom and keep it alive. That is why I created the Sacred Postpartum Summit, so we can support professionals to learn and share new knowledge together all across the globe. Today we'd like to introduce Sheena Byrom. She is a practicing midwife and worked within the NHS for more than 35 years in the UK. She is also an international speaker and author. Today Sheena will be talking about having a baby, who is mothering the mother. This talk focuses on the shifting culture and provision of the care and support of women following childbirth from a personal and professional perspective.
Hello everybody, my name's Sheena Byrom and I'm a midwife in the United Kingdom. I actually live in the north of England and I'm currently sat in my kitchen with my back door open because it's a beautiful sunny day and yeah, it's very hot. So I've been a midwife in England since the 1970s and Leila has invited me to talk to you about how the postnatal period, the postpartum period has changed over the past 40 years that I've been involved in maternity services in England in the NHS. So I'm delighted to be invited to do this. And I hope that just by my kind of reflections on what's happened over the few years that that you'll learn something from that. My thoughts on the postpartum period are that it is a very important time. I have to say, very first and foremost, that it is an individual. I don't think that it's kind of everybody should do the same thing postnatally, but I think women find it. Some women find it takes a lot out of them, and others don't. But I do think that women need to be nurtured and cared for, and I think it definitely takes a village to raise a child. And I think those first few days, certainly the golden hour after you've had a baby, and then the first few weeks, up to 100 days, it's so important that mothers get that someone to care for them and nurture them. When I was a young mum, my mum came and she came to all my sisters as well, and my sisters looked after us. So when you had a baby, it was very much that you were special and that you were looked after, and you were given lots of nice food, and everyone around you brought food rather than bringing flowers, which was great. And I remember being a community midwife in the 1980s and 90s in England. And that started to disappear. Do you know, as women started to move away from their homes because of careers or to follow where their husband or partner was working, then they were moving away from their nuclear family. And you kind of really saw the impact of that. So the nurturing of the first few weeks, first few days, first few weeks started to disappear. I think society in general has changed the way that women are viewed when they've had a baby, and sometimes there's an enormous amount of pressure on women to get back in their jeans and get back looking great, and instead of just relaxing and enjoying those, not necessarily relaxing because you're usually very busy with a baby, but just breathing in and enjoying the skin to skin with your baby and enjoying those first few months, because let's face it, they never come back. So I suppose just to reiterate, what I'd like to say is that I believe that women should be totally encompassed in family life or in their friend's life when they've had a baby and looked after, and that they should rest. And in terms of traditional things that happened in the past, apart from what I was just saying about my mum and my family and seeing other mums doing the same thing, one of the things that my mum used to tell me that they did in England, they used to do something called churching. So a woman had to go to church very soon after she'd had the baby, and until she'd done that, she wasn't allowed to do certain things. I'm not sure that that was really beneficial to the mum. I think it was some kind of a ritual that was more about control rather than looking after women. But certainly women in those days used to stay in. They called it the lying-in period. So I remember my mum saying that she was sort of, being cared for at least 6 weeks. And that lying-in period, when I was a young midwife, a student midwife, it was in my books, lying in, that was kind of the terminology that was used. So yeah, women, when women were having babies at home, most women had babies at home in England in the 1950s and 60s, and it was only after the Peel report in the 70s that more women started to give birth in hospital. But when women did start to give birth in hospital, they were kept in hospital for several days, and when I started to learn to be a midwife, that was the case. Women were in hospital, and that we used to do things like a vulval toilet and swabbing and kind of doing lots of rituals to women, and it was more about cleanliness because it was on the back of the fact that there'd been puerperal sepsis. So we did lots of cleaning of women. Women did get rest in that we separated mums and babies in the postpartum period in hospital. So that didn't happen at home, of course, when women had home births. But when women had their babies in hospital, we used to take the babies away and feed the babies at night, even if the babies were breastfed. So imagine that, how awful it is, and yet women really loved it. They loved having a rest and having a sleep in those first few days. But what happened if they were breastfeeding was when their milk came in, and because they used to stay in hospital for 6 days, when their milk came in, their breasts were very engorged, became engorged really quickly. It was very, very painful. And of course it was difficult to breastfeed, and I remember spending hours then trying to get babies to latch on these really hard, tight breasts that were extremely painful. And the other thing we did was we used to bind their breasts at night. So we'd give them sleeping tablets and painkillers, and then bind the breasts up with sheets, with drawer sheets off the bed, and nappy pins, because of course in those days we used terry nappies. There were no disposables. I remember my mum telling me that if you used a disposable nappies, you weren't really a good mother. So she took great pride in hanging nappies out on the line, which we all did too. But that's by the by. So we used to bind women's breasts up. So we never for 1 minute thought, well, do you know what? It's because we're going against nature here. Really, the mother is supposed to be with the baby. The baby is supposed to feed on demand. And here we are removing the baby from the mother, and it's causing so many problems. So how many times do we do this in maternity care? Do we do things and then we cause a problem? Then we try to fix the problem instead of going right back to basics and thinking about the physiology of the mother and baby. So yeah, we did some bizarre things. We used to actually not allow that shocking word. We didn't allow women to have an immersion bath after they'd had the baby, believing that dreadful things would happen. And I remember campaigning for years just to get women to be able to have a lovely bath once they'd had their baby. So that was kind of a ritual thing that came within hospitals, not necessarily what the woman wanted, but it fit in with the hospital ethos. So Yeah, so rooming in and the lying in period when women, and do you know, when there was the lying in period, I have to just snip back to this, that that's when we had a lot of women suffering and sometimes dying. The maternal mortality was higher from pulmonary embolism, so DVTs, deep vein thrombosis in the leg, because women were in bed and they weren't mobilising. And they were sleeping a lot of the time. So I think we've moved on in leaps and bounds positively in certain aspects of postnatal care and the postpartum period, but in other aspects we've gone backwards way, and certainly with caring for women and making sure that she's nurtured and looked after in those first few days and first few weeks. So actually the postnatal care in England at the moment is not like it used to be. So in terms of when women are having the babies in hospital, then the postnatal wards are very busy, because usually the women that are healthy and fit to go home have already gone home, and the women that are left with their babies are the ones that need extra attention and care. And that's what has to happen during that time when it's very, very busy. So women are feeling distressed when they're on the wards because all the babies are crying, and it's so busy that the midwives aren't able to necessarily help women like they need it. And so for many, many years, postnatal care has been the Cinderella of maternity services. And another thing that's really quite sad is that when I was a midwife, practicing midwife, although I saw it deteriorating year on year, we did home visits, and we did a lot of home visits to see mums mum and baby when they'd gone home from hospital or when they'd had a home birth. And that was I felt that was a really quality care, while some women didn't want it, so they had an option to say, after 6 days, no, I don't really need you to come anymore. Or other women that maybe needed a bit of extra support with breastfeeding, or with seeing sort of looking after their baby, knew that a midwife was coming in, and that is so sad that that's more or less gone now, and it's very few areas that have postnatal care in the community like it used to be. So a detrimental step, absolutely. And it doesn't matter who we are or where we work, but we have to acknowledge that is an absolutely detrimental step. So Layla said that there are a lot of traditions in different cultures, and in Morocco there's still quite a few traditions going on, such in terms of postpartum medicine, such as nurturing the new mother, closing her bones, keeping her warm, feeding her special warming foods, and so on. And I know that happens in other countries. I don't think there's anything like that in England at the moment, which I've kind of touched on. But I do think it's something that we should look at, and I know there are certain private practices popping up here, there and everywhere offering this to mothers, and it's such a shame that we can't do that within the NHS anymore. I have to say that it is my firm belief, and the evidence tells us, that if we don't get it right for mothers and babies, then there's going to be problems in the future, potentially higher risk of problems. So helping the mother to get to know her baby, to bond with her baby, to get that secure attachment, to kind of feel comfortable, not to feel stressed, or that just needs not only the family and friends around her, she also needs support services. And I feel that we're missing a trick here. It's a public health issue, and that the NHS would maybe save money in the long term if only they put more resources into supporting mothers and babies in the postnatal period. Take breastfeeding, for example, massive public health issue, and there isn't the resources put into supporting new mums to breastfeed their babies. So in England we have one of the worst breastfeeding rates, particularly at 6 weeks. Now, to me, that's a fundamental area of maternity care that really needs extra support and extra resources put into it. So when Layla gave birth in England, she loved the fact that the midwives and nurses would come and visit her at home. However, she felt that a lot of the time it was ticking boxes. Again, that's something I saw when I was working as a midwife, and over the years we became so focused on record keeping. Record keeping is absolutely crucial, and contemporaneous records are part of safe practice. But what's happening now is there's so many tick boxes that I fear that we're becoming more record-centred than woman and baby-centred. So I agree, Layla, and I don't know what the answer is to that, but I certainly, for many years, have been flagging it up at various levels with the Royal College of Midwives, with the Department of Health, NHS England, various bodies. Myself and Sue Down, have been raising that this tick box kind of mindset is just kind of exploded, and it's been happening for years, and it's getting worse. So we do need to think about how we can resolve that and get back to basic care. So in the Netherlands, yes, I've got grandchildren in the Netherlands, and there is in the Netherlands, women who have babies actually have, I can't remember the name because it's actually a Dutch word, but it's someone who comes in who helps the mother with household duties, with getting a wash, with seeing to other children, and that my daughter-in-law felt that was an exceptionally brilliant service. She loved it, and it really kind of gave her confidence with her babies. But I think in the Netherlands that's the same. I think those services are being cut as well. But I do think it would be brilliant if we had that here. Certainly, getting the feedback from the Netherlands, it's seen as a positive thing. I must find out that word. I actually wrote about it on my blog, so I need to go back to that. Right, so just to go back to that. So in terms of what I think, that I've mentioned a little bit already, I think that in the West we do need to focus more on the postnatal period with health visitors. I do believe that communities could do a little bit more, and I think women have to find their community if possible. So the women that are closest to them, and men if they want men, but if they really particularly want women, find the women around them, their family members, their friends, people down the road, their church, if they go to one, or community centre, or mother and toddler group, or go to the voluntary agencies and ask, where are the women going in this area? Find some support network before you have the baby, and ask them if they'll help you when the women have had. Ask the women if they can help after the pregnant woman has had a baby. There's all kinds of brilliant schemes that that women can get involved in, such as sharing skills. So sort of paying it forward and saying, if you help me when I've had my baby, I'll babysit for you later on, that kind of thing. So I think along with private services that are popping up, along with doula support, I've forgotten to mention doulas, and that's really bad of me, because my doula friends will know that I'm a huge fan of doulas, and I know some amazing postnatal doulas, intrapartum doulas too, the whole continuum, but some that specifically focus on the postnatal period. And if you can afford that, resource, then, and you haven't got family around you, that is absolutely amazing to have a postnatal doula. And the way to find out about them is Google them on the internet, ask your friends, look on Doula UK website. But you need to meet a doula who you get on with. So it's good to meet them in the antenatal period and find out. see if you can find one that you really like and that you click with and that you know will give you the right support afterwards. Find out what she does, and usually they've got websites so that you can look at them. But yeah, look for doulas. I just love doulas. So it's the family, friends, communities, lobbying the NHS to try to provide more postnatal care services with health visitors and midwives and peer supporters, support for breastfeeding, doula support, voluntary agencies that can get involved. There's so many things, and learning from other countries. So learning from Morocco would be, finding out about what happens in Morocco would be great for us too. So so I kind of wonder if I've covered everything. There was a little thing that I've forgotten that's gone out of my head now. Well, I suppose really it's, for me, the wise words would be look after yourself. Take care of yourself, whether you're a woman having a baby or you're a health professional serving women in the postnatal period. We all need care, we all need love, and we all need to give love too if we can. We just need to look after ourselves, and I think as well as acknowledging the things that women need, acknowledging the constraints and the stresses and strains of life, and acknowledging the fact that we are important and that we ourselves need that love and care that we deserve. Yeah, I think that I've done quite a lot of work around birth trauma when I was working as a consultant midwife. And I also ran sessions with a mental health worker for women who were had depression in the antenatal period and the postnatal period. I do think that the level of depression is increasing. I think we're not acknowledging it enough. I don't think there's the resources to support women who highlight the fact that they're feeling down and depressed. I think we're missing a huge window of opportunity to support women's mental health during pregnancy. And I think as a woman that it's my responsibility to keep lobbying for change, to keep working with individuals like Dr. Raja, who's really pushing forward for better mental health services in England. And there are individuals like him all around the world. So joining together on social media to make your voice louder. Once upon a day in England, we had to chain ourselves to railings in order to get ourselves heard. Now we've got a computer, we've got our mobile phones, we've got books, we've got access to the internet, and we've got social media. And social media is wonderful for connecting so that you can find like-minded people, get together and think about what are the 10 key issues that we need to lobby for change for, and how are we going to do it. So I certainly have my network of friends, and Layla's one of them, and we can debate and try and push for changes. So that's what we have to do. Look after each other and push for change. Thanks so much.